Hello, my fabulous fifth graders. Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Our I can statement today is I can use equivalent fractions to add and subtract mixed numbers. Here is a problem. We'll be focusing on word problems today. Here it says Zeta made 1 5/8 quarts of punch. Then she made 1 7/8 more quarts. How much punch did she make in all? I can tell that this is a word problem that will be asking me to do addition. Here is a graphic organizer that will help us to add and subtract mixed numbers. It's very similar to the graphic organizer that we use to add and subtract unlike fractions. This one will just give us clues to help us remember the steps that we need to take when we're working with mixed numbers. I'm going to use this graphic organizer on this problem. Our problem is 1 5/8 plus 1 7/8. So let's check out our first step. Our first step is to rewrite the fractions as equivalent fractions with common denominators. I can see here that these two fractions already have the same denominator, so I don't really need to rewrite them as equivalent fractions. I've got 1 5/8 plus 1 7/8. Now we're going to add and subtract the fractions. So 5/8 plus 7/8 equals 12/8. Now I need to add and subtract the whole numbers. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So I have 2 12/8. Now I need to simplify my answer. There's a lot going on here. First, I need to take care of my improper fraction. Then I'll need to simplify. 12/8 is an improper fraction because it represents a quantity greater than a whole. So I'm going to divide 12 by 8. And I get 1 4/8. So I have 2 plus 1 4/8. I can combine these two whole numbers into a 3. So now I have 3 4/8. Next, I have to see if I need to simplify the fraction. When I see here that I've got 4 and 8, I can tell that this number is a factor of this number. Since that's the case, I already know what my greatest common factor is. My greatest common factor is 4. When I divide 4 by 4, I get 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So my final answer is 3 1/2. Here's another word problem we're going to work through. Mrs. Gable bought 7 5/6 gallons of punch for the class party. The students drank 4.5 gallons of punch. How much punch was left at the end of the party? When I see that they're asking me how much punch was left, I know that I started with this quantity. I'm going to subtract this quantity. Let's use our graphic organizer to organize our answer. I have 7 5/6. I'm going to subtract 4.5. Let's check out my very first step. Rewrite the fractions as equivalent fractions with common denominators. I see I've got 6 and 2. These are unlike fractions, so I need to find a common denominator. I will find the multiples of 2 and 6. 2, 4, 6, 8, 6, 12, 18. I can tell already that 6 is my least common multiple. It will be my common denominator. 7 and 5/6 already has 6 as a denominator. But 4 and a half, I need to turn that into an equivalent fraction that has 6 as its denominator. Now, I have to figure out what I do to a 2 to turn it into 6. 2 times question mark equals 6. Well, that would be times 3. So, of course, I must do the same thing to my numerator. Now, I'm subtracting 7 and 5/6 and 4 and 3/6. So now I need to add or subtract the fractions. If subtracting, do you need to borrow from the whole? Well, I have 5/6, and I can subtract 3/6. That will give me 2/6. Now I need to subtract the whole numbers. 7 minus 4 equals 3. So I have 3 and 2/6. Now 3 and 2/6. We need to simplify our answer. Rewrite improper fractions, then simplify. Do I have an improper fraction? I do not, so I do not need to do that step. Now I need to check simplifying. I can tell that both of these numbers are even, so I'm going to divide both my numerator and my denominator by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. My final answer is 3 and 1/3. One more example today. This one is a little bit tricky. The table at the right shows the average length of some insects in the United States. Find the difference in length between a walking stick and a bumblebee. I know here that this word problem is asking me to find the difference. That means I will be subtracting. Let me take a look at my table. I need to find the difference between a walking stick and a bumblebee. Well, that means my question will be 4 minus 5/8. Let's use our graphic organizer to figure this out. I've got 4 minus 5/8. My first step is to rewrite the fractions as equivalent fractions with common denominators. Well, how do I do that with a whole number? I need it to have a denominator of 8. What I'm going to do, I know that 8/8 equals 1 whole. 8/8 equals 1 whole. Since I know this, I can turn 4 into 3 and 8/8. Now I will have fractions that have a common denominator. So 3 and 8/8 minus 5/8. Now we need to add or subtract the fractions. If subtracting, do we need to borrow from a whole? Well, that's exactly what I did here. I borrowed 8/8 from the whole of 4 so that I could turn my problem into one that I could solve. So now I have 8/8 minus 5/8 equals 3/8. Now I need to add or subtract the whole numbers. I've got 3 minus 0. That equals 3. So now I have 3 and 3/8. Now I need to check. Do I need to simplify my answer? Do I need to rewrite any improper fractions? Well, 3/8 is not an improper fraction. It represents a quantity less than 1. So I don't need to do that step. Do I need to simplify my fraction? I can tell that this fraction is already in its simplest form. 3 is a prime number and not a factor of 8, so I know that this fraction cannot be simplified. So this is my final answer. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. Our lesson today was on adding and subtracting mixed numbers. The I can statement is,
I can use equivalent fractions to add and subtract mixed numbers.
Go ahead and press pause now if you need more time to write this on your whisk. Here is the S portion of your whisk. I really want you to take this opportunity to try and create a real world problem. That means a word problem that would represent a situation you could find in real life that involves the subtraction of two mixed numbers whose difference is less than 2.5. Then solve. This is a pretty tricky problem, but I'd like you to take a stab at it. See what you can come up with. This is your cue for your whisk. I've got 3 questions of adding and subtracting mixed numbers for you to try out. Just do your best. We'll be practicing more in class.
Great job, students. Great job, Mommy. Have a nice day.